Hi, welcome to Triggered Care. Today is going to be a different sort of video. It is a research video that I have been looking into for the last week, reading articles and whatnot. Along with the first part of my video is going to be knowledge that I had that I started researching in middle school. So this video is going to be split up into three parts. The first part is going to be my own history of interest and knowledge seeking about Nazi history. The second part is going to be about the migrant camps and facts that I have found from various articles, which I will put all those article sources in the description so you can do your own research as well. Along with the third part, which is going to be the emotional aspects, why I'm talking about this stuff and how I feel about it. So first, I'm going to lay out my personal experience with studying Nazi history. In middle school was when I found out about the Holocaust through school and whatnot, and I became obsessed very easily with learning as much as I could about the concentration camps and about the Jewish experience and the sort of pain and horrors that they endured. And I studied that independently. I bought a lot of my own books about it. I bought books about Nazi doctors. I bought books about survivors who wrote their own book, like Elie Wiesel and Knight. Anne Frank's diary. I watched movies about Nazis and the Jewish experience and that sort of thing. You know, all the classic ones that you guys will probably remember seeing at one point in school. I had a Voices of the Holocaust class that I took in high school, along with I took a Nazi Germany history class in college as well. This subject matter I have studied for many, many years. And granted, I haven't refreshed my memory at all in the last couple of years about it, but I still remember a lot because this is a topic that has always hit me close to the heart. And the college course really helped me kind of put it into real world terms, as in it helped me see the social aspects and influence that the Nazis had, along with the cultural aspects and differences that they had. So just a little bit of Nazi history. The Nazis were, in their campaigning days, what was happening was Germany was not doing well economically because they had to pay reparations to the European countries for World War I. They were in debt. They had crumbling infrastructure. They just were not doing well economically at all. And they were a Weimar Republic during the time before the Nazis took over, which was sort of like a democratic system. My memory of exactly what the Weimar Republic did is iffy because, like I said, I didn't do any research for this part. It's just off the top of my head. But, so they had elections and the people were ready for change. They were ready for a change in the status quo. They were ready for a change in government because they needed relief from their economic hardships and from just the social and cultural hardships that they have endured from losing a war. And there were many different parties that kind of popped up to win the election in 1933, but the two main big parties that it was actually between was the Nazi Party and the Communist Party. And the Nazis won that election partly due to they started a fire in a government building and then they blamed it on the communists. They were able to manipulate the newspapers to pin it on the Marxists, so when election came around, less people were willing to vote for a party associated with terrorism. And the Nazis won the election with 33% of the vote because there were so many parties that it was just a party that got the majority of the vote. And that's how they came into power. So that is all sketchy as shit, And once they came into power, the first people that they started locking away into camps and imprisoning in large numbers were communists. Their rival party, pretty much, since they didn't want to have any opposition for future elections and for ideology, beliefs, pretty much, in their country. Now, why am I talking about all this stuff? Well, maybe you've noticed, maybe you haven't, but there's been a struggle of both political parties calling each other liars in the fake news era, and this is very much done purposely in order to gaslight and to keep information unclear about what's going on. So, that is a little bit, the tiniest bit, that I can say about Nazi Germany. I mean, I'm not going to go into the later years of Nazi Germany right now because I just wanted to let you guys know I've done my research on the history of it and kind of drawn some similarities between the economic instability that Germany had and its want for a leader who would challenge the status quo and who would bring them relief in some way, which Hitler did do a number of social programs to help people get back to work. His policies actually were a lot in line with Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They had a lot of the same policies, social work-wise. Not saying that FDR was like a Hitler, but it's interesting how they both kind of grew in popularity because they were giving poor citizens jobs, and they kind of gave the illusion, that they were fixing the economy. So, now that we got some Nazi stuff out of the way, I am going to go into my research for the last week, which is what's going on with the migrant camps that are popping up around the U.S., especially down in Texas. So, let us get into. First, let's talk about more recent history. April in 2018, Jeff Sessions put into place a zero-tolerance policy for migrant families splitting apart and taking children away from their parents, which I'm assuming a lot of you remember from the news. That did actually make the news. And there was a lot of bad backlash from the people about that, because just envisioning children being ripped away from their parents was enough for people to be like, that's not right. So on June 20th, 2018, Trump reversed that order, saying we're not going to split up families anymore. That's not going to be a thing that we do in order to appease public opinion and all of that. And since then, we haven't heard much about this at all in the news. Especially, there hasn't been any news about what's going on, what happened after that, and what sort of facilities are still being maintained. And not only maintained, but they're being given money to expand in order to house these children. And there was also the claim that the Obama administration was caging up children as well in these camps, which is true. In 1915, there was a surplus of unaccompanied migrant minors that the Obama administration didn't necessarily know what to do with, so then they made the makeshift facilities in these warehouses in order to sort of sort it out. And there was an update to the Flores settlement, which was originally filed back in 1985 by two organizations on behalf of migrant children for the sort of conditions that need to be met in order to house migrant children and how long they can be held for. And in 2015, that was updated to they could only be housed for 21 days by the government. Also, the Flores Agreement emphasizes that you need to be able to release the children to their parent or an adult sponsor with no delay. The government is required to release children from immigration detention without unnecessary delay in order of preference parents and other adult relatives or licensed programs willing to accept custody. It also said if a suitable placement is not immediately available, the government is obligated to place children into the least restrictive setting appropriate for their age and special needs. And then it also says the government must implement standards relating to the care and treatment of children in immigration detention. So the question is, where do we sit now, this many months later, with migrant children being detained? Well, according to recent Health and Human Services, otherwise known as HHS, statistics released to Congress and some media outlets, now has in its custody across the country 12,800 undocumented minors, a five-fold increase in a span of 16 months. And this article is from October 3rd, so it's one of the more recent articles that I could find on it. So that's nearly 13,000 undocumented minors are being detained by the U.S. government. So let's talk about what these kids go through in a logistical term. What happens when you get an undocumented minor picked up into custody? The first stop is at Customs and Border Protection facilities. And those are the pictures of the chain link fence and the tinfoil blankets where unaccompanied minors were put from 2014 or 2018 for both the Obama administration and the Trump administration. And those are from the Custom and Border Protection Facility. Such facilities have been criticized before for poor conditions and reports abuse and inhumane treatment, including a number of allegations that they deny, straight up deny. But also, these facilities are only supposed to house the children for 3 days. Nothing more than 3 days. And then after 3 days is when they either get sponsored by a parent or they're sent to a child immigration shelter. And those shelters, let's see, there's a CEO of Southwest Key who operates 26 of these shelters, tells NPR the children at his facilities range from ages 0 to 17. So there are children of all ages put into these shelters if they cannot get a sponsor or if they are not deported. The Associated Press reports that it has located 3 centers in Texas that have been rapidly repurposed to serve the needs of children, including some under 5, with a 4th center scheduled to open in Houston. Infants are among the detained children, the AP reports. So there are babies in the shelter without parents. There are tiny little people. And I'm not going to get emotional till the end. I'm just telling you what I've researched. Alright, stay on track. More than 10,000 migrant children, including children who cross the border alone, are kept in these facilities. And existing facilities are filling up. The shelter, whatever reporter visited, was 95% full. So these shelters are filling up very quickly, and considering that the number of children detained has gone up fivefold since a year and a half ago, that is quite alarming, especially since the zero tolerance policy was only in effect from April to June, and there was not that many children taken in that short amount of time. So there's been more unaccompanied minors adding to the children separated to their parents stuck in these shelters. And the last one are tent camps, which the most recent one that I've heard about was the Tornillo one down in Texas, which is sort of by El Paso. And it's a temporary facility. Little is known about it because reporters aren't let inside. It's behind two chain link fence, and there's a dirt easement on top of it, so you can't actually see into it from the American side. You can only see it with GPS, or not GPS. You can only see it with satellite imaging. And it's not clear how many teenagers are inside, but the government is planning to expand it to hold some 4,000 detained minors. However, the New Yorker spoke to lawyers and advocates who said there are no formal process or clear protocol for tracking parents and children within the system, and that the chaotic system and inadequate record keeping makes it difficult to find which facility a child might be at. So I'm going to talk now about the tent camp, because there's been a lot more information on that than general child shelters. And then after that, I'll talk more about the conditions and interviews that were given in these articles. So the Tornillo camp. The Trump administration established a camp in June as a temporary shelter because its facilities elsewhere were running out of space. That occurred at the height of the President Trump's zero tolerance prosecution initiative, a crackdown that separated about 2,500 migrant children from their parents. It's currently being operated by BCFS, a Texas-based non-for-profit organization which has been running the facility under short-term contracts. The camp in Tornillo operates like a small pop-up city about 35 miles southeast of El Paso on the Mexico border, complete with portable toilets, air-conditioned tents, and recreation and medical care. Originally opened in June for 30 days with a capacity of 400, it expanded in September to be able to house 3,800 and now is expected to remain open at least through the end of the year. The Tornillo camp was previously contracted to operate until the end of August, then extended to the end of September, and now they're saying it's going to stay open till the end of the year and further if needed. So HHS, the federal agency, that we talked about earlier, said it would more than triple the size of its camp at Tornillo, Guadalupe land port of entry from 1,200 beds to as many as 13. Yeah. So it is hidden. You cannot see into this camp from the ground. And it's planning to house 4,000 migrant children, all within the ages of 13 to 17, because they moved the older children to this camp. It was clear that the camp has expanded exponentially from when the Department of Health and Human Services opened it in June. I got lost. So, seeking to process the children more quickly, officials introduced new rules that require some of them to appear in court within a month of being detained rather than the 60 days, which was the previous standard, according to shelter workers. Many appear via conference call or video conference call rather than in person to plead their case for their legal status to an immigration judge, those who are deemed ineligible for relief get deported. So, and all this facility, Texas Monthly reported that a source with knowledge for the financial aspects of the camp said it will cost approximately $100 million a month to operate the facility when it reaches 3,800 beds, which I'm pretty sure it's already there because this one was a little bit earlier than the other one. So it's costing about $100 million a month to run this tent city detaining migrant children. And they are reallocating money resources from the CDC, from the HIV and AIDS program, and there was another one that's it left my head. But, so they're taking money from health programs that are supposed to help keep people alive and research diseases in order to detain all of these children. At one shelter in the Midwest, whose occupants were among the recently transferred to Tornillo, about 24 children were given just a few hours' notice last week before they were loaded onto buses. Any longer than that, according to one shelter worker. And the children may have panicked and then tried to flee. Some staff members cried when they learned of the move, the shelter worker said, fearing that what was in store for the children who had been in their care. Others tried to protest, but the managers explained the tough choices had to be made to deal with the overflowing population. So, the kids getting transferred to this tent city were already in a shelter, and these workers in these shelters have feelings, obviously, and if they're taking care of these kids and then buses come to bus them away, especially if they have siblings in there that can't go along with them because they're not the right age. Okay, I'm getting to the emotional part, but I still have to talk about the interviews and what else was said. So why aren't sponsors stepping up and picking up their children from these facilities, from these camps? Well, the Trump administration actually made that harder by enforcing a law that made fingerprints from everybody in the family a requirement before picking up these children. So a lot of families don't come to get the children because they're afraid of getting deported themselves or getting picked up by ICE themselves. So they wouldn't be able to pick up their children anyway and go back home. Let's see. There's in that article, somebody interviews a person named Stout, and I looked through the article and I couldn't find their full name, but this is what Stout has to say. In these facilities, we're basically incarcerating children. We are taking these children who really have no fault of their own in which situation it is right now, but we're putting them into a more precarious situation. Fernando Garcia says, it's absurd. More and more children are being detained by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. ICE's previous unwillingness to reunite children combined with the hardline immigration enforcement has resulted in this new crisis. Observers have raised concern about the psychological toll on young children who enter this shelter system. NPR Joel Rose talked to one former shelter employee who said he quit after he was instructed to prevent siblings from hugging each other. The organization that runs the shelter said it allows touching and hugging in certain circumstances. So I cannot find that much about actual conditions, what they do on a daily basis. Through my research, I did learn that they are supposed to provide schooling for these children, and at the shelters there are educational programs for the children to engage in, but in the tent camp they get thrown a workbook with no obligation to complete it. And most of my research is a lot of word for word what the articles say. So I highly recommend you read the articles. And actually, I'm going to pull up the authors of those articles so you know who is doing this research. Caitlin Dickerson from the New York Times. She had a couple articles about it. Brian Kinoff of The Guardian. And Nick Muroff of the Washington Post, and Camilla Damanowski and Richard Gonzalez. I'm really sorry if I butchered those last names, but those were from NPR. And I fact-checked all of my sources with, with mediasfactcheck.com. And they all had a left-center bias where it said the facts are normally reliable and good, but they're going to use more emotional language in order to favor liberal causes. But since I looked at so many of the articles and so many of the information matches up, I'm taking this all as truth. Which, unfortunately, you have to fact-check and fact-check and fact-check these days because you don't know what the heck is going on. But I did know that I want to know what's going on with this. Because this is a part of the video now where I'm going to emotionally respond to it, give my take on it, what I think is going on, how I feel about it. And I can say right off the bat, this is wrong. I feel it in my gut. This is fucking wrong. In one of the articles it was talking about, because the big deal about the time limit for these kids, they can't be detained for more than 21 days, which is trying to get up to 59 days now, is because the longer that they stay in detention, the more likely it is that they are going to self-harm or try to run away. Because you're putting children into prison. You're putting kids into fucking shelters where they can't leave and they can't see their parents and they can't talk to their parents, and they don't know what's going on with the rest of their family. They don't know what's going on with their friends, and then they move them. This is also from the articles where I didn't quote it word for word, but they move these kids in the middle of the night so they stay confused and can't fight. And this is not okay. This is not okay. This is fucking America, the land of the free, not the land of caged up children. This is not okay. This isn't okay. And the fact that none of the news is talking about this, or the fact that the number of children being caged up is expanding at a crazy rate. Right? Because last time that it was really popular in the news, there was 2,000, 3,000 children that were separated from their parents. And then once they reversed that policy, it's like people forgot about it and everybody wants to talk about all the other crazy shit going on. Which me included, I was talking about the crazy shit going on too, because they're bombarding us with propaganda and things to purposely make us upset and unstable. But I don't care how upset and unstable I am. This issue is so close to my heart, not because I was detained as a child, but I studied my butt off with the Holocaust. And it starts off as political prisoners in camps. And you know what? The Nazis had a nice camp too, that they would have the Red Cross visit to prove that they were humane. And I'm not saying that the United States is full-bore Nazi, but I'm saying we need to recognize the signs of fascism and the signs of cruelty, and we need to say no. That is not okay. It is not okay to cage up children. That's not okay. You know, like and the thing is like, I'm not even a bleeding heart Democrat. I'm pissed at the Democrats, and I'm pissed at the Republicans. I'm just pissed at all of them. Because they all know about it, and none of them are talking about it. You know? And yeah, we have domestic issues too. We have lots of issues that we need to talk about. Women's rights, sexual assault problems. We got a lot, right? But incarcerating children, that has gone too far. And talking to my husband about this, you know, we've been theorizing that it's because there's a South American resource that the government wants, and so they're just going to make an enemy out of South Americans. And that's one way to do it. Take up their kids and put them in jails. But it's okay because the jails have air conditioning and video games sometimes, right? It's fine as long as you give them workbooks and you give them air conditioning in a tent city in fucking southern Texas. I needed to make this video, and I may have not done it to the best of my ability, but I have to get this out because it has been eating my brain alive. Ever since I heard about it, it bothered me to my core. But then finally getting the guts to look it up and see what's going on and to see what scale it's at, and then realizing that they want to reallocate more funds and more facilities to detaining children. I can't even. The Nazis didn't even jail children right away. The Nazis jailed their political opponents. Also not good. Also a bad fascist red warning sign. I'm just amazed and saddened at this entire predicament. So, I hope that you were informed. In today's video, I'm going to probably make this the next video that I upload, because I have to get this out of me. I have to put this out there. People need to know that there are, first of all, children facilities all over the United States. The huge camp down in Texas is for 13 to 17-year-old children who are being taken in the middle of the night so they don't fight back, while caretakers are having their moral and ethical boundaries tested by needing to listen to management, even though it breaks their heart and they don't want these kids to go because they're worried for them, because they're fucking human. You know, call me whatever SJW shit you want to, alright? If it makes me a fucking libtard to care about these kids, then I will be the proudest damn libtard I can be. Because this has crossed a fucking line, and it's time for us to stand up and be like, hey, you're crossing a fucking line. You've been crossing a lot of fucking lines in the last couple decades. But I'm going to do more videos on my social justice warrior-ness probably, since I'm getting back into research. And sorry this video is many hours long. You can leave your comments below. There's the email, which, also the email was wrong in the description for a long time. I fixed it now, but if you sent me an email and I did not respond to you, try resending it to the updated correct email in the description. Along with that, like I said, all my sources are in the description for you to do your own independent research and fact-checking if you'd like to. I've named off all the authors because I do take a lot of their words from those articles, and I don't want to say, well, this was all me. This was a big chunk of just me spewing out the research that other people had done who had access and resources to go visit these facilities. If you have a video suggestion, feel free to message me. Mental health wise, even social justice warrior wise at this point, whatever it is. And if you don't like these videos, that's fine. You can just stick to my mental health videos because I'm still going to be making those. These research videos are going to be farther out between. And you know what? I need to stop talking so this video isn't many hours long. So, you know, my normal one is have a good one. But for this one, you know, just try to have a good one. But also don't let apathy take over your heart. We need to still feel. Feeling is a good thing, and we need to have access to our feelings. So have a good one, and stay true to your beliefs.